Hello everyone, today I'm going to share a solution for you Smartsheet techies out there. Have you ever taken pride in creating a clever and complex Smartsheet only to get swamped by confused users giving you loads of questions? Now, we've created an AI description generator that I think will be really useful to you. All you need to do is submit a simple Smartsheet form and leave the rest with AI and automation. With this solution, you will have quicker onboarding with self-explaining sheets so you can say goodbye to frantic hand-holding and cryptic columns. Let me give you a quick walkthrough on how all of this works before we dive into the details. Starting off with a complex sheet with no column descriptions, you can automatically generate descriptions for these columns simply by just entering the sheet ID into a Smartsheet form. You'll monitor the progress through a Smartsheet manager and then have the new descriptions updated to your Smartsheet columns automatically within 1 minute. For full transparency, you also receive a detailed report showing you the AI's decision-making process. If this sounds useful to you, then great! Let me show you how it all works. Okay, so picture this. I work at the PMO office and a new internal project has just launched. It is the Digital Workplace Transformation Project, so as you can imagine, it's quite a huge project, and that's why I have decided to create a complex task tracker to make sure this project has the highest chance of success. We have collaborators from various departments working on this project, and it even includes external vendors. So all in all, I estimate there to be about 50 collaborators that will be working on this sheet. Now, I've pulled in some column descriptions that are pretty standard that I've pulled across from previous projects that I have worked on, and I have this column over here because I'm a savvy Smartsheet user. I have created a health indicator in this column over here, and that is being represented by quite a complex formula. So as you can see over here, it not only takes into account the standard fields like the status of the task, the start date, and also the end date and the days remaining, but it also takes into account the resource type for that specific task. So say for example, if it was an internal task, the risk is perceived to be lower than a task that is mixed or is handled by an external vendor. And that makes logical sense because the risk associated with having a task being done by an external party would inherently be higher. So as you can see from rows 7 and 8 over here, although they have identical number of days remaining and also duration, you can see the task that has a mixed resource type has red health, and a task that is purely internal has a yellow health. All the complexities we have just explained, and yet it is only being represented by a simple, vague description that doesn't even highlight vendor risk. This is a common mistake by Smartsheet users who often assume that their descriptions are clear just because it makes sense to them. Right, for experienced Smartsheet users like myself and maybe perhaps you, I don't think there is difficulty in following this logic over here. But for external collaborators and even casual occasional Smartsheet users, this might really be a problem for them, and this would lead them to be confused. So in addition to that, we also have project management related columns like predecessors that will only be familiar to people working in project management or more experienced collaborators that have worked on more large-scale projects throughout their career. So with that in mind, these simple descriptions that we have over here, or even columns without descriptions, that's just simply not good enough. So let's see how AI can help with this. So AI has been a buzzword that has been thrown around a lot recently, so I want to take some time to explain to you how our system works in the background so you have full confidence and trust in our system. This solution doesn't just ask ChatGPT to go ahead and write something. It follows a structured, engineered prompt that has been tried and tested for different scenarios. It starts off by analyzing the Smartsheet column. It looks at the name of the column and if there are any existing formulas, drop-down options, and existing description. It uses all of that data from the column and combines it with Smartsheet and business context to generate a description that is truly representative. It will score the description based on a very strict rubric that we have come up with, and if there are risks of any misinterpretation or ambiguity, it marks the score down significantly. Now, based on the score, it will then make a decision. If AI is confident, it will update the column immediately and have the new descriptions reflect what is actually in the Smartsheet. If it isn't confident, it would flag the column for you to review. And finally, this is the really cool part. If the existing description is clear enough, it will preserve the original column description, so our system actually preserves the author's original tone of voice. All of this have been built into the AI prompt to ensure safe, accurate, and reliable results. So with that done and out of the way, let me show you how all of this works in practice. Alright, so generating column descriptions on Smartsheet is really simple and easy, and you don't even need to leave Smartsheet in order to do it. Simply enter the sheet ID of the Smartsheet that you want columns generated, and with that you can find it by right-clicking on the sheet, head to Properties, copy the sheet ID, and then you can paste it in here and hit Submit. Nice and simple. We're now being brought into the Smartsheet where all the AI column descriptions are being managed. Right, so this is our AI description, column description manager. And what you can see over here is a history of all the Smartsheet where it had AI column descriptions generated for. So in addition to that, you can also see the summary of results for each sheet. You can see the total number of columns that had been analyzed, the number of columns that had been automatically updated to the sheet, and also the number of columns that had been flagged for review because AI wasn't confident in the column description that it has generated. Speaking of confidence, if we open the Sheet Summary tab, we also have the option to tweak the AI confidence threshold to control the strictness of the system. So lowering the confidence threshold will allow more column descriptions to be automatically updated to the Smartsheet, whereas increasing the confidence threshold will result in more column descriptions being flagged for review. Now, last but not least, we also have this last column over here, which is the action column, and this allows you to regenerate the column descriptions and also allow you to clear them all so that you start with a blank canvas. As part of the form submission, the action column automatically selects generate to initialize the automation. This is when the status changes to initializing. This sends a trigger to an external automation system called make.com, and when the request is received by make, the status will change to running. Make will now compile all the column information, and this includes any formula, any drop-down options, and existing descriptions, package them nicely, and send it across to OpenAI so that it can generate a compelling description. Once that is completed, it passes it back to Smartsheet by updating all the column descriptions. When this is all done, the status changes back to ready, and you will also receive a full report sent to your email address, and this is normally the person that has submitted the form, so it's being sent to who submits the Smartsheet form that I've shown you earlier. Okay, so before we delve into the results, I think it's important that I touch a little bit on error handling because no automation is free from errors. And the way we document it is going to be very important because that gives us a clue on how to solve the error. So if we look over here on this first row, we can see that there is a status error. And if we go into the row comments, we can see that there had been a server outage on OpenAI side of things that had caused an error in generating descriptions. So if we see this error, all we need to do is try the automation again. So over here, we can click action, hit generate, and then save it. And then this should then go and fix itself in the background. All right, now that that sorts itself in the background, let's have a look at the results. Looking at this row over here, we can see that a total of 12 columns were analyzed, with 9 columns being automatically updated in Smartsheet. And that means that AI was able to generate 9 column descriptions that it felt confident enough so that it automatically updated the sheet. There were 3 columns that were unchanged, and this means that the existing description was good enough and therefore no changes were required. And then finally, we have 1 column that was flagged for review, and you can see over here a bright red flag signifying that the AI system perhaps wasn't confident in the column description that is generated. As part of the automation, you would have also noticed that the sheet ID had been converted into hyperlink to give us quick access into the sheet. Now let's have a look at the sheet and look at the columns that have been updated. We can see that if we zoom out over here, we can see that column descriptions have been applied to every single column except for this last one over here. Now, it might not be apparent that these columns do indeed have column descriptions applied to them until you hover closer to it and point to the icon, and then indeed it shows that column description has been applied to it. And this is a Smartsheet quirk where for native columns in Smartsheet, it would not display the icon over here until you hover over to it. Now, as for this last column over here, why a column description was not generated, we'll have to look at the report to find out exactly what's happening there. So now let's have a look at the report that is generated. This report will have been sent to your email address upon the completion of the automation. And if we open it up, we can see that the first section of the report immediately brings your attention to the column, the last column that we mentioned earlier that did not have a column description generated. And you can see that although it has created a description over here based on the drop-down options, which was C1, C2, C3 to C4 and C5, its confidence is only 82%, and that's not high enough for the threshold that we've set it, which is 90. And over here, it clearly states the reason why it's flagged, and that's because the C1 to C5 is vague. It's clearly a categorical code, but the exact business use is uncertain. So it says over here exactly why it did not update the column. So after this, we're going to go back to the sheet and we're going to add some more context to it and then regenerate it. But whilst we have the report open over here, I just like to bring you your attention to the remaining bits of the report, which are the bits that did not require review, but I guess it's still nice to have a look at what AI has generated. So I'm not going to go through every single column, but you can see over here the first few columns, a new description has been generated. It's confident in its description, and therefore it has updated the column automatically. We can see over here that there are two columns with original or existing description in it, with already a high existing confidence. Nevertheless, it still created or generated a new description, but it did not update the column. And this goes into what I was explaining earlier with the system acknowledging that the new description may not be better or may not be significantly different, and as such it preserves the author's original tone of voice. So that's the nice, really neat feature that being shown over here. And last but not least, we have the health indicator column, which we discussed extensively before that. Originally, the existing description is just green, yellow, and red, and showing a good risk and due. But right now, with the additional context from the formula, which I've shown you earlier, OpenAI has ingested that, tried to make sense of it, and then come out with a new description that clearly highlights that there is vendor risk involved with the red health. The new confidence is 93%, and because it's confident in its answer, it went ahead and update the columns. Right, so now let's go back to the column that is requiring our attention, which is this one over here. Let's try to fix it. As part of the report, we've also created a hyperlink over here so that you can click it, and that should bring you straight to the sheet itself. So let's wait for this to load up. Okay, so now on to this last column over here. Let's add a simple description to define the different codes. Hit OK, and then we're going to hit save. And then now we're going to go back into the AI column description manager. We're going to try to regenerate the column description, and we can do that by hitting generate over here under the action tab, and we're going to hit save. And now OpenAI and make.com will go ahead and regenerate the column description based on the simple description we've put in there, which should help give it some necessary context. Okay, so fast forward a minute later, the automation is now completed, and we can see that changes have been made to the sheet, and so we're just going to refresh it. And now let's look at the new description. Now it clearly states that with this new description, the category codes that relate to the different expense codes, and also the purpose of it, which is used for consistent reporting analysis. So that all makes sense, and it's all brilliant. Now I'm going to give you a snapshot of all the columns that have been generated. Feel free to take a pause and read through all the column description. Column descriptions are just one of the examples of how AI can enhance your Smartsheet to the next level. AI can also support simple approval decisions using clear yes or no rules. For example, validating timesheets or approving travel expenses. AI handles low-risk decisions so that the management team can focus on what really matters. And last of all, AI can also generate useful insights directly from Smartsheet data. For example, it can scan rate logs and automatically produce a weekly executive summary. Leaders get a clear, concise insights without needing to read every row or update. My name is Alvin from Blue Precision Technologies. We're a Smartsheet solution partner, and if you'd like to find out how AI can enhance your Smartsheet capabilities, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.